Hello and welcome back to another episode of the DD Geopolitics live stream. I am your host, Sarah, and I am joined today from Nick from the Revolutionary Blackout Network, aka Socialist MMA. Hi, Nick. How are you on Friday night?
What's popping? You got me up
How?
late. It's good to be here. Good to be here.
Yeah, it's good to finally have you on. So I kind of want to bring our guests in to let you know we don't do a lot of USA centric shows. So I'm really excited about this because I'm the only person at DDG that is actually in the United States, and I hate the United States politics, so I don't like to report on it. So
Me
I do
too.
want to let people know who you are, how you got started, and just for some background for the listeners, I've actually known Nick or of Nick since 2020 when the George Floyd stuff was going on and RBN was sort of coming into fruition. Before it was Fred Hampton leftists, I want to say.
Yeah, that's what we started off with.
And then it kind of evolved. So yeah, why don't you tell us a little bit about that origin story?
Yeah, and that's who I still strive to be like. Uh, Man, I need to get back into Substack. That's how I got started. My first article I ever wrote on Substack was "Reject Barack Obama, Embrace MLK," and it was a Substack where I write about how our black leadership class sold us out, sold Black America out. Despite the narrative of all this progress that was made, I made the argument that the civil rights movement never ended. We didn't really accomplish our objectives. When you look at racial income inequality, it's worse now than it was at the height of the civil rights era. They essentially replaced Jim Crow policies with a new police state using civil asset forfeiture. And I can go into Wall Street, corrupt financial policies to tank our wealth. And a lot of this is because the black capitalist class is complicit. They sold out. The revolutionaries that was willing to fight against the establishment, like many of the Black Panthers, many of the radicals who stood with Palestine, for example, the people who stood in solidarity with the DPRK, the people who stood in solidarity with Stalin. That's something a lot of people don't talk about, how Malcolm X and W.B. Du Bois are Stalin bros. Like they would be called tankies today based on their opinion. So
Oh, 100%.
it was a very big shift in the black community where we was the counterculture. We was the left counterculture. We was the revolutionaries in the street. So all of a sudden that we wanted to be assimilated into this corrupt system. And there's a lot of people in our community who benefited from that because we have a record amount of millionaires. But think about the stat I just read you. Despite how many millionaires we got, we still have giant racial income inequality gaps. We have our community that have been victims of giant police states. And we went from aspiring to be revolutionaries like Kwame Ture, Malcolm X, Fred Hampton, and all of a sudden we have Eric Adams, Stacey Abrams. What happened?
Maxine Waters, who was supposed to be like this cool auntie, and I'm like, guys.
They tell me that they're my black leaders, Sarah. I'm like, you out of your damn mind. But that's what. So that's where the name originated from. Like the idea that even if we are a fraction as intelligent as we have accomplished a fraction of what they accomplished, we also strive to be like our revolutionary brothers and sisters and many others who didn't actually go down in history, but they are what I call the most manliest of men. These are the people who stood against a violent empire and they decided to resist, and that's why I'm going. That's why I'm going to do. If do I have a blueprint of how we're going to overthrow this empire? Not really, but there's nothing else other than struggle, right? And that's kind of what got me started. And what you guys are doing is very interesting because I had a project. And we talked about this a little bit when I had you on RB, and we definitely got to do that again because that was a great conversation.
That was awesome. That was so fun.
It was very
go watch it. That was a vibe. That was good.
Yeah. But you guys have what I talked about, like the International Leftist Coalition. I was on RB and talking shit like, man, it'd be great. We have this great international coalition to resist empire. And meanwhile, there's DD Geopolitics, and big shout out to Zoya's Love. I seen your like work, but then she like really put me on. So I'm a big supporter of what you guys do because this is like the vision. You say you're the only American because you got all these people uniting against the empire, and I think that's most important thing that we challenge, that we fighting right now.
I think that's so important. That's why I like that people like you, you have a nice movement going. You have a really big following, and then we have other people that are kind of moving in these circles, in these sort of
Yeah.
younger, like we're all millennials for the most part. Maybe a few are Zoomers, but for the most part, we're millennials. These sort of millennial-based political movements, and I find them really intriguing. Why don't you go through 10 demands? One more, like just to refresher for our listeners, because 10 demands is kind of bringing, is kind of resurging in popularity, isn't it, through the protests and whatnot?
Yeah, we try to warn people because if you are wanting to resist the empire, if you wanted to resist the establishment, for example, all these blue line, don't tread on me types who also worship the police state. Like, so if there was ever a move by the establishment to take your guns, who you think is going to do that? What mechanism you think is going to be used to take your guns? It will be the police state, because they are class traders, and they get these amazing retirement benefits. They get these amazing salaries. Like, it blow your mind. It will blow your mind how much a police officer make, because they get bought off by the capitalist class to become loyal to the state. And it's a weird pathology, because I've seen these videos of these protests and the cops at the protest, and they're really upset. Like I've seen this video of this black cop, who are the worst. The black cops are the worst.
You guys always say that. I don't have a lot of experience with cops, but all my African American friends are like, the black cops are way worse.
They are the worst. They have something to prove to their colleagues. They got proof that they with the state, not with the hood. So that's why they, with that chip on the shoulder, they feel like they got to overcompensate. And that's literally why they are the worst. And there's this viral picture that was going around of this big buff cop with veins popping out his head. He like screaming at the Palestinian protest. They're like, bro, why you even care that much? And that's the kind of people that have been groomed, that have been by this cop culture that we have, this worship of authority, and that will always be used in service of the capitalist class, of the ruling class.
I hope everybody's taking notes. I hope they're all taking notes, but keep going.
Yeah, yeah, and it's directly tied to class war as well, because when you look at civil asset forfeiture, which I just talked about as well, it impacts everyone in the working class. But there were studies where they looked at all the civil asset forfeiture cases in South Carolina and in the South, and it was a crazy number. Like 65% of the civil asset forfeiture cases was black. Well, they would just take black people, steal their stuff, and there's no legal mechanism that these people do. And the only people who will be successful getting their stuff back, you have to spend a ton of money in legal fees just to get your stuff back. It's literally state-sponsored robbery. That is just one way that they shift and transfer wealth. It's been a big, giant part of their scheme, a big, giant part of maintaining the ruling class position, despite them going against the will of the proletariat, the will of the people. We have Congress, Sarah, that has an approval rating of 13%. But why you guys think they walk around pretending like they're safe, they're arrogant, despite having 13% support? Because they know if there's ever a popular uprising, they will have this giant police state they've been building to crush down dissent. Why do you guys think there's cop cities popping up all over the place? And you see escalating police budgets, where the police budgets in our country is larger than every other military country except China's. And they're preparing to go to war with us because the ruling class don't plan on fixing any problems. So instead of fixing the problem, they're building this army that is ready to squash down dissent. So if you're an advocate of revolution or any sort of anti-establishment change, whatever you call it, the escalation of the police state should be one of the biggest priorities, which is why that's how I got started in activism. You guys know I'm always starting organizing. I'm getting back to your question. You guys know I'm a long-winded motherfucker.
Yeah, but it's okay, because all of this is part of where you're coming from. So yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So that's why I got to the 10 demands, because it was during the George Floyd protest, an event that's still one of the most lied about events in modern times. Even people I don't think is nefarious, they will like openly lie about it. You hear people say the George Floyd protest is where people lit their city on fire. Like, we've seen a brutal public state execution. And then people use their First Amendment rights to protest, to march in the streets. And I know this because unlike these people, I was reporting on the ground. I was reporting actively. This is how I got started. My Twitter account blew up because I was sharing all these videos and firsthand testimonies. The cops was attacking us.
Yep.
I reported. I had video. I had pictures because there was an incident where the Kansas City PD, they threw tear gas in this park. We were protesting. If you're in Kansas City, you know what I'm talking about. There's this park near the plaza. That's where pretty much all the designated protests go. Hey, if you want to protest, go over there. Every day, always protesting over there. But outside of that protest, most of the protest was on the street and away from the main civilian area. The police chucked tear gas where children was at. There were children that got tear gas, and there was people that was serious that wasn't even part of the protest. That was like, hey man, we just at the park. You guys tear gassed us. I was tear gassed.
Yep.
Like, and they were just tear gassing people randomly. And then of course, people got upset because they're using something that is considered a war crime on an international scale. So of course, people start cussing at the cops. People start throwing water bottles. And you want to know what the right wing media reported? They just show the part where people were upset. Yeah. You have the police and agent provocateurs. Like there's so many of these people that we call. I have a friend that caught someone who was literally infiltrating one of the George Floyd protesters, causing mayhem. And that's why it's weird that they blame the protesters ignoring agent provocateurs. And I'm explaining this for you guys, for people. I'm a citizen journalist. I only can tell you guys what I see with my eyes and ears. And I was reported on the ground. You guys know what I saw at the George Floyd protest in Kansas City? There was a group of black elders. I still remember this to this day. There's a group of black elders, and obviously they were supported by the entire group. They was going around and saying to everyone, hey guys, we want a peaceful protest. And there was like, in a way, tone policing, make sure everyone staying in order. Now, isn't that the exact opposite of the narrative that you guys hear from the media where they're like, oh, they had these George Floyd protests and they burning the city down? No, there was an active, coordinated effort by the community to make sure everything peaceful, and the cops make sure that didn't happen. And they caused, and then this scene, and I'm seeing it. It's just in one city. This is all over the country.
Yeah.
And this seeing this crackdown dissent. This wasn't the first time. I live in Missouri, so I was deeply integrated into George Floyd. I'm not George Floyd, for the Ferguson.
Yes.
And that was something I was very, very eye-opening to me, because I'm like, that's in my backyard. You know what I mean? So I'm like constantly seeing over and over and over again people upset with the government. Then the government sick the police on the protesters, and then the general American populace for some reason cheer for the state. Like it's insane, especially even compared to countries who I largely disagree with, like France. Compare their population to how docile our population is. Like, why do we accept this paramilitary group for the government that's designed to crack down dissent? Which is why we started 10 Demands, because we need to start looking at the role of government power differently. And that's why I want our first demand. I'll spare you guys. It'll take me forever to explain the whole thing. We got individual videos for an hour explaining each demand, because each demand we wrote in great detail, like listing history. Like if you look at the website, the first demand is defund the police, because that's the number one check on their power. And I don't know why people. So sorry, Sarah, I know you want to chime in, but last thing I would say, and this is why
I'm fine with it. Keep going.
The reason why I take the challenge on, and there are a lot of people afraid to take the challenge on, because I just explained to you guys, the police budgets in our country is higher than the budgets of other countries' military. People consider the DPRK in North Korea to be a militarized state, right? They say, oh my God, look how crazy North Korea is with their militarized state. In New York alone, we spent 3 times more on police in New York alone than North Korea spent on their military.
Oh, yep, they beat Ukraine too. Before the war, before the aid packages. They beat Ukraine, yeah.
So people talking about reforms. Sarah, what are you talking about reforms? Like, why would anyone run away from the fiscal argument? Like, I have a blast poking conservatives about this, because they talk about this for small government, small spending. I'm the crazy communist advocating for more responsible government spending than they are. Because at the same time, under breath, Sarah, and I promise I'm done to this, and in one breath, they would say, "Oh my God, the crime is out of control. I feel so unsafe." Because Americans are cowards. I feel so unsafe. Meanwhile, we got record police spending, and they never connected to how much money do people need to spend on policing in order to feel safe. And people are programmed to feel unsafe because they want people to be separated. But Sarah, I know you got plenty. You probably want to.
No, you brought up all of these cool things that kind of all mashed together because you talked about, and the first thing that we were discussing was assimilationism of the African American community. Then you talked about Black cops being the worst, and I kind of want to explore this sort of assimilationism that I think is a mistake in the U.S. culture, because I think that African American people, and not to say like separate but equal, no, I think that they should not have been pressured to assimilate, and that led to even worse outcomes. And then we're seeing that happen now with a huge immigration wave. So how do we kind of get the Black community? I don't know if we can de-assimilate them, or how, because reparations isn't going to work. We already know that. You're going to put the money back into a corrupt system that we don't like. So how do we get the Black community kind of like more politically involved? And I also kind of want you to talk about the apathy, because you did touch on the civil rights movement and how involved these great Black leaders were. And then we kind of get to the 90s where there's a kind of a shift, and that's when you start getting like the Obamas and the Eric Adams. So kind of wondering, how do we get back to this counterculture of African Americans?
Yeah, for one, I'll try to tell my adults, brothers and sisters, especially the more liberal-minded ones, there's no reparations without revolution, my friends. Not gonna happen. It's not gonna happen without a revolution, Marxist-style approach. When you look at the Black Panthers, there was a Marxist-Leninist organization, literally revolutionized how they created a free breakfast lunch program that many schools stole, and they created their own breakfast programs because of that. We was focused on taking care of our own material conditions. And that's why 10 years ago, if you present that argument to me, or any argument that we shouldn't assimilate, I would have been horrified. But as I got older, I realized that Malcolm X was correct in the sense that we have no business begging to assimilate in the system that we didn't build. And that doesn't mean that we cannot have massive success, because we should be building our own inner governments, our own inner communities, and engaging in community. And we talk about this on RBN when we had our conversation: mutual aid, building our community, having our own community defense systems, and then from there, like our amount of leverage from an outside, being unapologetically outside the mainstream politics, having our own independent style governments with our allies who obviously wouldn't be in coalition with us. We work and we operate in that sense instead of begging. And I hate this to this day when I see these people begging for scraps. I see people begging for scraps. I see people they buy into liberal incrementalism. And they, whether they believe it or not, they also believe in the ideology of Colin Powell, where Colin Powell said, well, there's not any racism in this country anymore. If you're Black in this country, you can easily succeed if you either join the police or join the military. And when he said that, like, you guys just said the quiet part out loud. So you either put yourself in a position where you become a Black capitalist yourself and you exploit Black labor, which is why I always roll my eyes at the liberal ideology of, oh, let's just funnel all this money into Black businesses, as if Black businesses themselves don't exploit Black labor. You know what I mean? And this is the stuff. They either want to become the oppressor, they want to become part of the military and the police, and they are forced to integrate in a system that is oppressive, that is a net harm to our society. That's why, and that's just one of many reasons why the quality of life expectancy, the income inequality have decreased, because they decided to go in a neoliberal model that is not how we built our societies. When you look at old tribal societies, when you look at indigenous societies, like that's not like this the harsh, individualistic, nature was never, and that's what Kwame Ture famously said. I'll pass it right to you, Sarah, because he addressed this question when they said, "Why are you guys into Marxism? Why are you guys into communism? Isn't that a white person's ideology?" He's like, "What are you talking about?" Well, the only thing Marx did was he observed how indigenous Africans and tribes in South America live, so it was inherently in our nature. So for us to try to assimilate and sell out to the establishment that will quickly, and there's many of these people who try to assimilate, who learn this lesson, who will quickly teach you a lesson if you dare question them or have any kind of independent thought, right? But Sarah, I know I'll pass you. I know you want to chime in.
Well, now I forgot what I was even going to say, but I did want to talk about the shift from black revolutionaries to black liberalism, but you kind of covered that. And then I wanted to talk about how this kind of trend, how these protest movements, because we met during the 2020 protest movement. I think the 2020 protests were very African-American led, BLM that got co-opted and kind of absorbed as a DNC mechanism. Then we had January 6th protests. And while I wasn't involved because I didn't care about that election that much, forgive me, listeners, I really didn't. I still was very much like, well, I was fighting tooth and nail for the protesters in 2020.
It was hilarious.
Well, I'm not going to say anything about these guys. Why would I, right? And that's how how do we get people to more so foster that? Because now we're seeing the same people that were at Jan 6 are now cheering on the beating of the protesters at colleges. And then the next time we have a right-wing protest, it'll be the opposite. So how do we create I guess it's class consciousness, or how do we create that?
Yeah, it's partisan politics, breaking people's brains. Like when January 6th happened, it was the funniest thing that ever happened.
We were dying. It was on the screens at work, and I was like, "This is incredible! Like, what are they doing? This is incredible!" I was just enamored with the whole thing.
It was one of those things where you had to be there. Like Twitter that night was something special.
Black Twitter that night was happening.
Yes. You took the words out of my mouth. Black Twitter was literally trending. I will never forget it because I had a banger tweet that had got like 14,000 likes while I was mocking the insurrection. I don't know how to go through it, but I remember when I made the tweet, I was laughing about it. Me and Rome. That was like when me and Rome were becoming friends, like around this time. And me and Rome, we was having a blast, bro. And I was coming off of working on the Bernie campaign, so as I was shifting farther to the left, I still had some contacts and friends. A lot of people don't know, like, I had a lot of friends in higher places in the Bernie campaign and the Bernie apparatus pre-FHL days. And it was my the few people that held on to my fuck Joe Biden and criticizing AOC and Bernie, the few people that hung on, they left after my January 6th takes and tweet because I thought it was the funniest shit ever. It was the funniest shit ever. And then I was shocked when I saw the reaction of the left. Like it was the other way around for me. I knew liberals was going to melt down, the institutionalists was going to melt down. But even the people who are to my right, like the progressives, I was shocked to see them go along with what the establishment was saying, because obviously the establishment was using this as a way to bulk up and give more power to the government and the police state, which they did. And I reported this on that at the time. They had this bill that the squad supported that essentially gave more money and funds on the Capitol Police. It gave them spying powers and more ability to engage protesters aggressively. And you want to know the first people they used it on? They used it on indigenous protesters who was protesting Line 3, and no one in the progressive media covered that. Except, among the squad apologists, they didn't cover that. They didn't use the state power to go after Trumpers. They used it to go after people who protesting pipelines. Go ahead, Sarah.
Exactly. I want to scream. Like, when we say these things, we're like, stop using these liberal mechanisms to do your bidding. Like, I want to scream because they set precedents. And just like you said, you're like, here we are rooting on the police state while they're beating our political opponents or whomever we're told that we need to hate. And in the end, those become the precedents that are then used back on us. It's like it's like everything that's going on in the ICJ and the UN. I'm like, you might not want to really use these because then they're set precedents to be used on your leaders that you do like. So this kind of thing. So I'm so glad you brought that up, because now we're at the college protests and we're seeing the most outlandish, ridiculous legislation being trying to push through in terms of rescinding funding, free speech laws. What is happening?
They have the establishment is not handling this well. They have a bill that they proposed
They're not
that
handling
was
it that well. They're really doing bad.
they had a bill they proposed that would send college protesters to Gaza. You know the place they're committing a genocide at. That was Tom Cotton and Josh Hawley put together. And what we see from the establishment, I seen this psyop coming a mile away. Like it's so weird to watch these psyops because I studied the theory behind psyops. We know how manufacturing consent works. I only been a citizen journalist for about 3.5 years now. I studied a lot of theory. I understood how the media work, but it's fascinating. Almost like watching a nature documentary, like seeing it in real time. Now, I saw it in real time. They manufactured this fascism, this new era of fascism. So first, they was talking about anti-Semitism on college campuses. Then all of a sudden, they was talking about how college campuses are not doing enough to address anti-Semitism. And then they had Claudine Gay, and this is one of the best examples of the black people selling out to the ruling class and the capitalist class. But you crossed in 1 second, they publicly lynched her. I should say professionally lynched her. Because Claudine Gay is someone who I do not like at all. Like she's a sellout in so many ways. Sarah, you know, she said she find pro-Palestinian protesters deplorable. That's what she said.
Oh, Hillary
But
Clinton 2.0.
yeah, and I'm summing up, but she essentially said, "Yeah, I find people the pro-Palestinian was in summary, she said I find these protests to be deplorable. I find the language that being used anti-Semitic, but technically they got the First Amendment right to do it. You got to know that's the only thing that Claudine Gay said, and you guys have seen the right-wing meltdown, and they professionally ruined her." And she agreed with their premise, Sarah. She agreed with the premise that the protesters suck. She said we just can't do anything about it.
Yeah,
So Claudine
exactly.
Gay, Claudine Gay was made an example of. So then Congress passes a resolution. Remember the resolution
Yep.
where they could inflate Zionism with anti-Semitism? After crafting that resolution, they then make another bill where if you get suspended from colleges based on their broad definition of anti-Semitism, you're now will be put and labeled as a domestic terrorist. And that's after putting pressure on the colleges to adopt their unhinged definition of anti-Semitism. And there's still a lot of people who don't realize this insane fascistic move will just happen. So now, after putting, they just had another trial. I gotta see what happened. It just happened the last day where they had all these college uh, presidents, and they did the same thing essentially. So the first you get the colleges to expel them, then you arrest them, and then you charge them as domestic terrorists, and you have the entirety of the right wing, the same people who was virtue signaling over the Canadian trucker protest that they didn't even take a part of. They're like, "Oh, I stand for freedom. Look at what you're doing to the trucker protest," and they support the same shit in this country, not for anything, not any American value, not anything that will protect them, for a hostile foreign state of Israel.
Well,
What
then
was the original point? I forgot the original point, but go ahead, Sarah.
I don't remember it either. We were talking about how we get people to kind of have this class consciousness. So then when the inevitable happens and the pendulum swings and the next protesters are on the right, we don't have a leftoid meltdown that's like, no, and then they cheer on the police when they go into kind of
and then we were talking about
the
Capitol Police, and then that's how I got to the college protesters, because and this is why I label ourselves post duopoly, and we must hammer that, like, when you look at partisan politics, that's it not only rots people's brain, it rots people's integrity. Like it ruins your integrity to be in a duopoly, because the same progressives who was screaming defund the police was cheering the police for January 6th.
Yep.
The same people who was upset about the Canada trucker protest and was upset about January 6th was cheering for police to beat the shit out of us during George Floyd, and they cheering on this new fascist merging of the Zionist police state used domestically against student protesters. It really rots the mind. That's the overall point I was making. I'll pass it back to you, Sarah.
Well, that's exactly it. I'm like boggled, right? Because now we have sort of, and now I want to really dig into it. Now we have this sort of, we have an I don't know how to call it, like an anti-Israel sort of sentiment. It's both exists on the right and the left. And then these two factions hate each other. And like we have the right kind of like, they're more of like a no foreign aid sort of thing. Maybe there's a little bit of like fascism mixed in where they're like, we also don't like Jews. And then on the left, it's more so along the lines of a Palestinian kind of decolonization, irredentist sort of thing. How do like what's happening? We're seeing these two groups. I want to say like for lack of a better description, we have the Titans of I guess Jackson and Hinkle and Nick Fuentes, for lack of two better examples, kind of clashing. These two interesting, these two dichotomous things coming together in the same cause, but just absolutely just butting up heads. So how
it's just it's and I'm for forming coalitions, and that's what I truly believe. I think this coalition to defeat Zionism at some point. I want to work with anyone, but there are a lot of hesitancy, and I can explain why there is on the left, but I'm gonna explain what I see from the right why they don't work with us. There was the viral video of do you guys remember where you had that protest where you had Trump supporters on one side, then you had the left on the other side, and the left was saying, well, I'll start with the Trump supporters. They were saying fuck Joe Biden. And then the left, they were saying fuck Joe Biden. Then the Trump supporters were saying fuck Joe Biden. Then the left was saying fuck Joe Biden. But you guys see the problem there? The people on the left saying fuck Joe Biden is not supporting the institution. They're supporting the movement. The people on the right who are saying fuck Joe Biden is only saying fuck Joe Biden because they're supporting Trump. You guys see, this is an existential problem that will destroy coalition building, which is why I had a general criticism of MAGA communism, and many of them still haven't forgiven me to this day because of that. Because to me, the idea of MAGA being some sort of a faction with revolutionary potential never made sense to me. Because the reason why they refuse to work with us is because we dislike Trump and we dislike the Republicans.
Oh.
And they feel like if they work with us, even though they agree with us on this, because it still shocked me because these right wingers will agree with me, and they, oh my God, I'm agreeing with the communists, and they don't want to make that step because the Republican Party trained them to that I'm their enemy, and that's the diagnosis why this fracturing happened. Why even though we say things we agree with regarding the empire, that's why a lot of people on the right fall for that. And obviously on the left, there's just general idea, especially among black and brown revolutionaries, that these MAGA people, these capitalists, even though they may get one issue right, they would never support us in the long-term class struggle. A lot of them is against our right to exist. And that's essentially Nick Fuentes, who you can't really debate that guy. We got to take arms against him because he's even against like us having power in this country. Like, how do you debate that guy?
We can't take arms against Nick Fuentes. But go ahead.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to get you in trouble.
That's okay.
The point being, like, there's because of the innate tribalism that the duopoly exploits, that would cause a division where people won't reach on the other side and work with people. The fact that I'm outside it, the fact that you see RBN, Do Distance, Kit from Harlem Media, our friends in the post duopoly, that's why we are willing to work with people on the right or left, because we are post duopoly. You can't rely on these MAGA people who their calculations on who they work with and who they won't work with lies on whether you like Trump or not. And that's alone will kill coalitions. The same with the progressives, and I'm not letting them off the hook. I'm not letting the progressives off the hook because they're the same. Like the AOC supporter, which is a very few, like the legitimate dumb progressive, they will never work with the right winger they agree with because the right winger don't support a Democrat. Like, you guys see how the duopoly is designed to divide. So until people can take that step outside of duopoly, the revolutionary potential is nil. And that was my general criticism of MAGA communism and the belief that there's revolutionary potential within any duopoly side. There's just not. I tried that before with Bernie, and I saw how that fell. And I'm very scientifically minded. I tried something once and it fails, I'm done. Know what I mean? So go ahead, Sarah.
Yeah, well, let's explore MAGA communism, because you guys got into a little bit of a tiff on Twitter, and it exploded a little bit, got mountain out of a molehill. We've all had our tiffs or our kind of, I think that with MAGA communism, the initial getting over the hump of the MAGA part and the Trump part, that kind of like doing a little bit of mental gymnastics to kind of get like that sort of through your brain. And I do love the fact about the MAGA communists that they're really about coalition building. We had this conversation on your show, so I'm kind of excited about discussing it again because we've really started focusing on the left. You know, we're seeing the right really coalesce. They're really coming together. They have a huge amount of subscribers, a huge amount of engagement, and a huge amount of money. And then we kind of on the left, we all kind of argue and bicker and blah, 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 dogmatic and whatnot and what have yous. But I really think that even though Jackson can sometimes be off-putting because Jackson is Jackson, there are so many incredible things to be drawn from. And this happens to us at DDG too. People generally don't like me. Okay, so but DDG, there's so many things to take from DDG that are not me. And I think that MAGA communism kind of suffers from that a little bit. But once we start digging into the actual people that are doing the vanguardism inside of that movement, there's some pretty incredible people. I mean, Haas is a very intelligent person, and so is John Jackman. But like, so I think that building these coalitions and kind of like just, I know Jackson and Haas well enough to be like, they'll be like, yeah, hell yeah, we'll work with them. But like, these coalitions is what we need, and we need to start pulling these student organizations.
I find Haas funny. like he's because I'm one of those people that enjoy people with chaos energy, and that's why a lot of people don't like Haas because he got this insane chaos energy. But you guys see, I partner with Rome. I love that shit. So I think Haas, he's funny because he debate people. He debates people who are anti-communist. I'm like, I got nothing against that guy because that's a net positive for our movement. I had a general disagreement on how we frame things, but in general, we are working on the same goals. And even when we're talking about the idea of patriotism, I agree with their premise of patriotism. There are a lot of people on the left who saw that they call themselves patriotic Americans. That's very off-putting. It was off-putting for me at first. It was like, what the fuck? Flag humping, because I talked about this on RBN with you. I don't like worship of institutions, and that's my criticism of them, because like the name gives people a bad first impression. But when I talk to them, they're like, no, actually, we don't really care about that. It's just mostly patriotism. I'm like, that was the only criticism. Like, my criticism was not even of them. My criticism was just, and it was just about the conversation, was like how you market yourself to the working class, and the initial bad impressions that people get kind of prove my point right. But when you talk to them, when you organize with them, like, okay, we actually agree with all this shit. Like, when I see Haas and Jackson yell at Zionists, I'm like, yeah, I'm kind of for that shit. You know what I mean? The disagreements that I had with MAGA communism at the end of the day was very small. You know, there's a lot of egos, and there's a lot of people who blew this stuff out of proportion, and that's what I saw on Twitter, and this is why great friends with Eddie Liger from Midwestern Marks.
Great, Midwestern Marks, yeah, they're great.
That's why I'm friends with Misty Winston as well, like, and Nico House. Like, we can disagree with a few
things. Nico, I'm one of Nico's biggest fans. Don't tell him that's embarrassing.
Nico's my brother, man. I love that guy. I love that guy. Like, before there was RBN, there was Nico House, my friends. Like,
Nico was the one doing it that everybody hated, and and we all were like, yeah. But I feel like you fit into this kind of neat tiered system, because that's the way that I look at MAGA communism. I'm like, people are like, isn't that kind of like, wouldn't those be competing? And no, they're not competing, because we're working on an international level out of Eastern Europe, and then Jackson takes the American stuff and elevates it up to the international level, and then you're like really into grassroots, sort of working class, and the actual people, and so is Midwestern Mark. So I feel like that, like, everybody really fits together really well, and there's a bunch of assets that kind of we can exchange. So this is exciting, actually. Maybe Eddie's watching, or maybe Eddie or someone else at Midwestern Marks is watching, and they'll get in touch with us. But yeah.
Yeah, that's why the establishment they have to do something. Like, I'm surprised the TikTok ban didn't happen soon. I'm actually like, there's a lot of insane government overreach, and like regarding them trying to crack down the media. But to be honest, guys, I'm surprised they're not doing worse, bro, because we're living in this new golden age where all these people with anti-establishment ideas can connect. The establishment age of journalism, where we are hearing people just dissect the Western Empire talking points, the establishment talking points, and then we can meet up together, and then we can bounce ideas off each other. We can critique each other. We can make each other stronger. And because of that, we can create this giant anti-establishment coalition that like has a tangible effect. Like, I saw that Eddie Midwestern Marks Haas Jackson had this event in Dearborn, Michigan. You know what I mean? And then I was just
Tomorrow,
at,
isn't it? Tomorrow?
yeah. And
Yeah.
we have countless events held at RBN chapters. I was just at KU giving a speech with Jill Stein. So like these things are not just online. You have all this real stuff. Sabby has her mutual aids on fire.
She's another one. Oh my God. I love
Sabby's yeah, Sabby's our
Congratulations to Sabby on, what is it, 100K she hit, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Sabby, and it still shocks me to this day that no one else signed her because we signed Sabby like 5 months after we started our group, and we like, why is she so slept on? Like, it made no sense. Like, because I remember with Sabby when she had a channel, one channel only had like 500, 1,000 subscribers. She invited me on. We did this panel of Black media creators, and we were talking about the struggle. You know what I mean? This is before Sabby blew up, before FHL. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we was on the room like, bro, why is no one like she's has so much talent? We already knew like Sabby hitting 100,000 subscribers is not like shocking to me. Like, it was always bound to happen, and I'm blessed to be in community with her. You know what I mean? But we have all these heavy hitters. We have all these people that, especially in the light of this genocide, in light of the escalation of World War III, you got de-dollarization that's happening. Like, we are living in like the craziest of times, and I just couldn't. It couldn't be a better time to have this community. You know, I mean, there's going to be real actions that are going to be taking place because of this. I mean, I'm planning on going to Chicago, and I'm forming up with Kit. We forming Voltron. There are a lot of people meeting in Chicago, so there's real tangible.
Chicago, hit me up. I have other people in Chicago on the Persians, like the Iranian and Muslim side. So let me know.
Nice. Yeah. Man, I don't know. They might cancel the DNC convention though, because I was about to cover it, but now they're talking about going virtual. I don't think they're going to do it. There's no way. There's no way about they about to have the damn convention.
I think it's so imperative that that even if we don't get along in private, or even if we have our like secret like rifts or whatever, that we present a united front, at least to the subscribers, at least this vanguard of people. Because I mean, I really like your wealth of intelligence, you, Rome, Haas, even Jackson, and some of the Midwestern marks as well, and RTSG. If you guys aren't subscribed to RTSG on Substack and Twitter, you're missing out. They put together incredible pieces of like research papers. They're creating think tanks and stuff. So I think they're presenting this united front as like a huge morale boost to the movement, getting everybody together, forming these coalitions, working together on, I mean, we're watching like Haas and Jackson are getting kicked off and boycotted from college protests. That's why I was right up in the mix. Like, what the hell? We don't fucking do that. We don't do that. Like, we shouldn't be celebrating, and nobody should be celebrating them getting ripped off of a college campus. We need to be examining why they were ripped off of a college campus. But like, we need to start bonding together. And that when we become the united front, and then we become like, this is what we're doing, you could see these tangible changes. We pull in these people that are like these AOC leftists, and then we pull them to the left. Because
we have Ro Khanna is friends with Bill Kristol. Bernie Sanders is friends with Joe Biden. AOC and Cori Bush is horrible, but AOC didn't endorse Cori Bush against William Lancey Clay. William Lancey Clay, you gotta know, because this is Missouri politics. Like, I knew everything about this guy. Like, William Lancey Clay teamed up with the St. Louis Police Department. He was openly corrupt, calling for violence against protesters during Ferguson. He was like literally one of the most corrupt motherfuckers. He literally got his seat from his dad. They had a family dynasty for 50 years. Essentially, one of the most corrupt black oligarchs. Like, he's like Jim Clyburn level. Obviously, he wasn't as notorious. He never reached national power like him, but he was a bad, corrupt motherfucker. AOC refused to endorse Cori Bush over him the same time she ran because they became friends once AOC got elected. So you got to see how the establishment don't allow these political differences to stop them from forming coalitions, because they understand how to get shit done. I mean, there's some things that I see all putting for some people, but I'm like, bro, if you're anti-imperialist, you post-duopoly, you fight for the working class, like, bro, I would ignore a lot of the smaller stuff, as long as they don't get in the way of that overall goal. So even though there's maybe small criticisms of different opinions, overall, I still find, I think it's good that there's a Haas and there's a Jackson. You know what I mean? I think it's good overall that we have those people out there that can cause a ruckus. You know what I mean? They even can present your information differently from you. And we need that overall
Exactly.
as a movement. That's just how, especially in this new era of our being, that's how we're gonna move and that's how we're gonna operate. We presenting, we want to lead by example. We putting our ideas out there. We building our movement the best we can because that's one thing. I had so many late night conversations with Ron. Like we had countless hours conversations. Like before we even launched, we had like a month before we launched as a channel where we just fucking talked. Like the fuck we gonna do? You know what I mean? And it was like,
Well, Rome can talk. That's for sure.
you guys have no idea, bro.
I love
Like
him.
if you meet Rome, and I explained because he was in Kansas City, we hung out for like a week and we did multiple mutual aid events, including feeding the homeless, giving away thousands of diapers, for example. But bro, there are a lot of these people who have personas. Like, we don't need to say names, but there are people with personas out here that are not real, bro.
No, Rome
Everything you guys see from Rome, I promise to God, I met the guy. JB will tell you the same thing. Sabby will tell you the same thing. The shit you see from Rome is dead ass real. Like when you hang out with Rome, he is not thinking about anything else. He's just talking about, all right, what should we do? Oh shit, there's homeless dude over there. Man, how can we build this? Oh shit, I got this idea for this. Bro, there's literally nothing else, bro. There's literally nothing else from Rome other than revolution. Like
literally.
I literally could not imagine doing this without Rome. You know what I mean? Like I'm his right hand man. Like I was about to say the other way around, but no, I'm his right hand man. Like Rome is the fucking man. Like he's the legit. There's no persona there. He's real. So I had long conversations with him, and we talking about like building this community right. You know what I mean? We got, and even like, bro, we heard a lot of people's feelings. We heard a lot of our growth potential. But we like, bro, we gotta be real, and we just gotta see where the fucking ships fall after that, bro. And we were just shocked. Go ahead, Sarah.
That I run into the whole like I was right too far ahead. Do you know what I mean? Like I was calling out the protesters and people were like, you're canceled. And then 10 days later, I was like, I told you I was right. But they were like, you've already been canceled. So you suffered from that affliction too, I think, a little bit.
It was so interesting seeing so many of these because I've been doing a lot of Tony shows especially over the last few years. A lot of people originally like will cancel and follow me, and then they come back like, damn, you was right. Because I feel like if you study and we view this as a science. I view everything that happened in politics in the lens of science. Everything there's a cause and there's effect. Everything that happens is a reality of our material conditions. And then once you approach it that way, once you approach everything through the lens of class struggle and by organizing, that will lead you on the right path. You know what I mean? There are a lot of people who want to take shortcuts. I guess there's a lot of people who have like ambitions of having an MSNBC contract. And that's how like the left independent media was. It, like I would say like it's crazy to see like the change like pre-2020. Like we look at the big channels or the big people, Young Turks, like they are so irrelevant now. It's so weird to even mention like the Sam Skeeters, Young Turks. They're so irrelevant. They got big crowds and audiences, but they're all liberals now. Now they have no influence on the left at all. That was the only voice. They're just out for MSNBC contracts. That's not what the new era is after. I mean, with this new era, I always had this goal of destroying the establishment. There's nothing that matters in this life other than that to me. Especially you had the genocide in Gaza.
Yeah, exactly. We're at a point where nothing is sustainable. We're at a point where we don't have anything left to lose. So we have these 20 to 40-year-olds, this block of us who is like, we don't care about money, and money doesn't even buy anything anymore. Like, let's go. We can't be bought. We're not the Young Turks. We don't care about that nonsense. And this is incredibly frustrating. So we see like the deboost and all of that stuff. And now we're in the midst of this genocide in Gaza. And then you wanted to continue from there. So go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like after that, bro. After all the dead children I've seen, Sarah. Like I'm a softy guy at heart. Like I'm one of the people that never really like horror movies. You know what I mean? I like a simple movie. I like a simple story with a good feel good ending at the end. You know what I mean? That's kind of person. I'm a country bumpkin. I tell you that all the time at RBN. So I've seen all these dead children really done something to me psychologically. You know what I mean? And now, like the life goal is just like more directed than just destroying the establishment. It's like I want to see Zionism in all its forms utterly crushed. Like I want to like, and obviously this may not happen in my lifetime. I may be a 70-year-old man in a rocking chair still telling stories about what happened in Gaza in the 2020s. And I'm like, this is what led to the movement that destroyed Zionism. But bro, there's nothing else in my life I want to see more than the death of Zionism. And
with the death of Zionism comes a huge chink in the armor of imperialism. So like that's like, I mean, we're right here. It's kind of a low-hanging fruit. Not saying that it's going to be easy, but it's right there. It's very easy to teach people about. And then once we do that, or like get that rolling, I mean, we have Russia kind of presenting this sort of anti-NATO promised land, you know, and then now we have this in Gaza, this situation showing that these liberal institutions no longer function or never did in the way that they were meant to. And then Zionism is completely out of control. So we do have two things right in front of us that are like ripe for the taking.
Yeah, I'm seeing all these Gen Z TikTok videos that I see shared, and I'm trying to get in the game with Hotspot. You guys know we're trying banger after banger of Hotspot. I'm trying to get in the game, but I'm trying to keep up with the Gen Z TikTokers, and they making these TikToks talking about AIPAC.
Yes,
they talking because they going through the same process I went through maybe about 4 or 5 years ago, and I'm seeing them go through like, hey guys, you guys see AIPAC? You guys know that AIPAC won 40 out of 40 elections? Do you guys know that AIPAC donated this much money to King Jeffries? Oh my God, you see how much they donated to Hillary? I am watching people talk about this in a way I've never seen in my life. It would be just us radical nerds before we talk about AIPAC. Now it'll be mainstream people. I will say this without being insulting, but it's true. They're normies. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that's an insult. But even they are talking about AIPAC now. Even they are like, bro, what? So there's like this massive awakening. And this is something, and I'm not saying this to be critical. A lot of people get upset when I criticize the older generations. I'm just explaining things, guys. I'm not trying to be ageist, but it's just the reality that Gen X boomers slept on this. Like they allowed Zionism to sleep in their society. They fell for the anti-Semitism psyop. And I would say the younger millennials and the Gen Z, we're the first generation that's like, dude, shut up. We don't buy this. The Mossad openly said the anti-Semitism stuff was a tactic that they used. And it worked fantastically for boomer Gen X. Well, they legitimately believed that if you criticize Israel, that you are anti-Semitic. That's not working no more. And this shift is why you see all these massive protests. And that's why you're seeing the police state going after the young people. And that will lead to this massive conflict, right? But go ahead, Sarah.
No, I mean, like, yeah, I was just going to agree with you pretty much and then kind of try to come to a close because I think that we need to actually do another episode because we didn't get to do like half the stuff because we only got to do one demand. We only got to talk about one police force. We only got to talk about one other leftist movement. Like we need to start getting the whole crew together for like monthly roundtables or something like that. You, Rome, Sabby, MWM, maybe Haas, like start doing these things and like building this coalition. I think this episode was such a good vibes episode, just like our episode on RBN.
It was a good intro because our show on RBN was very fun. This is the first time on this channel, so definitely I'm down anytime. And I know we didn't get through everything, but trust me, we've been listening. There'll be a lot to talk about. I'm sorry, like you guys see my RBN. Especially with people like Sarah, like people who cover geopolitics, and I can rant all day with you guys. So feel free to invite me on. If I'm free, I'm down. So
you know what you need to start doing? You need to start coming down and doing spaces with us. That's where the shit really hits the fan. That's where like we go like balls to the wall.
Your spaces are good. Like your spaces, you've seen I've popped in a few. I like your spaces. I generally never had a good experience with spaces because a lot of spaces are filled with a lot of bitch asses. And what I mean by that, I've been in quite a few spaces where I'm like, all right, let's debate. And these motherfuckers like mute me, shut me down. And I'm not rude, but you guys know I enjoy a good debate. Like I'm not a debate me, bro. That's not my style. But if we had disagreements, I'm one of the people that enjoy talking about my disagreements with people. But I'll be in spaces and for one, people will go on to long monologues, and then whenever there's any exchanges, it'll break down. People have a hard time disagreeing with each other without getting emotional. So in general, that's why I stopped doing spaces because, like, bro, it's a lot of time was a waste of my time. But your spaces are good though, so I might drop in your space.
they actually have helped me. I mean, I still flip out, obviously, because I deal with them way more than is healthy, but they actually help you desensitize yourself to these sort of like awful like rhetoric. Because, you know, you hear the repulsive rhetoric for a lot of these movements, and you're like, I don't even want to be involved with you. But when you're in the spaces, as long as you understand how to hold on to your scruples, you can get yourself wading through this disgusting rhetoric. I want to rape you or fight you or kill you or whatever they say. And then you actually get to the meat and potatoes. You can throw all that away, and because you know that's rhetoric and not going to happen. And then we can actually debate the actual issues. So I encourage you and your subscribers to come down to spaces, because I would love to bring in that. We don't get African American leftists on my spaces like ever. I think I have like 2 or 3 that are regulars. We just don't. They just don't come down, and we want more of that, because we have MAGA communists in there. We have the DDGO Paul. We have pro-Palestine people, and then we have the other people that kind of wander into debate. So yeah, I would love for you to get involved in that. This was a good episode. This was good vibes.
Yeah. I'm sorry I'll probably destroy your show flow, but you know, I think we had a good
I don't care. We don't have a show flow. We do. We
good. That's good. That's good to know. It's good to know.
We morph to the guest. Guys, make sure you go follow Revolutionary Blackout Network on YouTube and watch my episode, especially. They have a website, www.com, and then Nick, especially on X. I told you guys about Rome, Unholy Rome on Twitter. Please find him. He's still building his library, and he often has fundraisers for tons of different mutual aid initiatives. Really amazing people doing amazing things. Nick, anything else? Closing thoughts for our audience?
Yeah, I'm supposed to be visiting Rome around July for the opening of the library, so that's gonna be dope. So I'm gonna be in Detroit here soon. Then I'm gonna be in Chicago this summer. If everything go to plan, Rome is a fucking legend. But yeah, also I'm gonna need your help because, bro, I'm a fucking boomer. It took me forever to learn how to do like YouTube and streaming. Telegram, I'm trying to figure out. I might help you. I might need your help for that.
Hit us up.
Right, our friend Zoya, everyone been telling me about Telegram, and that's
Zoya is the best. Zoya, come, be more involved, Zoya. We need more of Zoya. We need more Zoya live streams, more Zoya spaces, more Zoya. I love Zoya. Gosh, that's what a queen.
Zoya's love, Zoya's life. Someone else, she has to be on my team. You know what I mean? She's playing a big role.
I might fight you for her. I might pull her to be my USA correspondent. We'll see. We'll see. All right, thanks everybody. We'll see you tomorrow when I steal Nick's work. When I steal Nick's girl Zoya, Mrs. Steal Your Girl, and we have Mark Sloboda tomorrow morning, guys. Nice. Have a good weekend. If I don't see you, and Nick, we're gonna do this again, 100%. Sure. All right, thanks again, guys. See you soon.